Catalyst Sports is a nonprofit organization where we teach people with different abilities how to climb and do all these different activities that have been offered in the mainstream, but not to someone with a different ability. Adaptive sports is a way of adapting a sport so that it allows anyone, whether they have a physical disability or not, to engage in that sport and not to be left out on the sideline to just cheer someone else on.
Side climbing is where an individual climbs alongside a participant, aiding them in whatever they may need on the wall, be it physical or just emotional support. It starts right from the introduction of a climber. The most important things in side climbing are really, one, developing a good rapport with your participant, and two, keeping them safe. New side climbers are pretty afraid of interacting with a participant, so your job is to just introduce yourself, show them around, and get to know your participant. This will allow us to develop a good relationship with them, open communication with them, and get us to the point where we can start learning about the different needs of our side climber, of our participant, and then we go from there. When side climbing, we're not focused on, again, climbing for ourselves so much as just being alongside the participant and being there to provide them support. So we're hanging on the rope a lot, and we're hanging out with the participant a lot, talking with them, getting a feel for what their needs are on a kind of minute-by-minute basis. You want to give some basic tips right from the ground, like what's a good body position, right? Just as a climber, we know like all our movement, the vast majority of movement is derived from our legs, right? We walk around every single day. That's where most of our power is. So even with someone with diminished leg function, we want them to get used to trying to put weight on their legs as opposed to pulling themselves up the wall. We recommend that we have two sets of eyes on everything. So if one person tied a knot, another person checks it. Someone put on a harness, someone who was not involved in putting that harness on then checks it. We also want to check that our ropes are not twisted in any way, shape, or form, and that our teams check each other and communicate all climbing commands before we actually start climbing. Commonly, you'll see newer side climbers grab the foot, right, and then just try to move it, right? Which for Ian here is just fine because he has, you know, he's a normal range of motion and can move that foot easily by himself. Let me bring it back down. But a lot of times you'll see that either they have a lot of spasticity, tightness here in either the hamstring or just bending in the knee, and by grabbing someone's foot, you're just not going to be able to move them. They'll be locked up here and you'll be like fighting them, pushing them away from the wall and not being able to get that up. To properly move a foot, first we're going to ask a participant or tell them we want to move this leg, right? I like to physically cue because it helps some participants process. It also helps just so they know, we don't have a concentration of, or don't have confusion between what is the right foot, left foot, things like that. Particularly happens a lot with younger kids. So we're going to move this foot, all right? Physical cue lets them know this is the foot I want to move. Helps them mentally prepare, okay, I want to move this foot. Some people need a little extra time to process, I need to bend this foot, okay? And then we're gonna grab from behind the knee, right, and lift and help them bend to place, right? That way we're moving in a proper knee alignment, right? We're not twisting the knee in any way that we might get if we just grabbed from the ankle, and we're helping them actively focus on the point that they're bending, and at the same time simultaneously supporting the foot while we're moving it to where we want it to be. Right? Now when we get into this position, sometimes we'll have to support the foot. Right? Very common, people with cerebral palsy, they'll just have a lot of weakness back here in the Achilles, or maybe they're wearing big clunky shoes and those shoes don't allow them to put a lot of pressure on this foothold. So we're going to want to support this heel. We can do that in a couple of different ways, depending on how involved the participant is. Or sometimes some people just need a little hand here, just to stabilize that heel, right? You'll see telltale sign is they'll get this kind of like Elvis leg going, like shakiness, right? And you can just grab here, and that just grabbing here a little bit gives them that extra support they feel they need to step up on it. All right. And other times, we'll have to actually really brace it. Right? Our methodology for doing that is to get underneath the heel, right? And we want to give them either a big muscle to stand on, ideally a leg, right? Or if we're up higher and the leg doesn't work, we can also use an arm, right? And notice that when I'm supporting with the arm, I have my elbow tucked into my side and my shoulder stabilized before I'm actually letting them step on it. This will allow me to divert a lot of the force into the side of my body, as opposed to hanging out here, where I can then, when they exert that force, kind of strain shoulders or elbows and come in here. What we're going to do is we're going to support the core, support the trunk stability from the small to the back, right, with one hand. Or if a heavier individual, we can kind of even just lean into them a little bit with the elbow or even the shoulder. Right? We're going to support the core. We're still going to grab behind the knee here, right, to help facilitate the bending and moving in a proper alignment. Right? And then we'll have to use some other methodology for moving and supporting the foot upwards. Right? Now, a lot of times with people who are higher functioning, you can actually just grab here and the knee will naturally bend, so you can lift from here. Right? And other times you'll need, with a lot of spasticity or a lot of weakness, you'll need to use either a foot or some other trickery to help raise that leg. If Ian here can't reach this next foothold, we'll have to create for him what we call an imaginary hold or an intermediate foothold. So what we'll do is, just like how we were supporting the leg before, we want to make sure we're in a good biomechanical position, right? I'm going to give him a knee in this scenario, and you notice that my knee is 90 degrees over the foot, so that when he steps on it later, right, I'm carrying the weight down from my knee straight into my foot. I'm not in a position like this where you can see my heel is lifted and I'm rocked over, so that's going to put a lot of stress on my ankle and potentially hurt myself. So we're just going to move his leg, again, grab him from the knee and the foot, and we're just going to place it solidly on my foot. So now, when he stands up, right, it's not too stressful on me as the side climber, and it gives him a really stable platform. Also worth noting that if we do something like this, where we're on the toe, just give an extra, if we're not super stable, then we're liable to kind of wobble, and as they step up and create that force, we can lose that foot, just wasting their effort, in addition to potentially hurting ourselves. So there are other options sometimes that we have to employ higher up, because we're using our feet either to maintain balance for ourselves or to do other things for the side climber, like support an additional foot. So we can again use our arm the same way we did previously, and we can, once we lift the foot, we can tuck here. Although with a climber of even Ian's size, it's going to be a lot of force on the side climber. With a smaller climber, we can sometimes get away with doing this. Just try not to flex the arm. We're going to just grab beneath and just let the weight carry along our bones, and not really try to curl them up, but just act as a support. But I try not to use this one if I can avoid it, and usually only use it with really small kids. When a participant reaches the terminus of his climb, his or her climb, we need to be able to lower together as a team. It's important for the side climber, when lowering, to be in the proper position. Ideally, the side climber will be roughly level, so that when they pull backwards, their elbow comes back at a 90 degree. And this is, for most people, the power zone for them pulling. If a climber is too high or too low, you can see the arm angle varies, and can then tweak a back and shoulder in trying to exert force, particularly with a larger participant. In a scenario where our participant is a little larger and we're not able to easily pull him or her away from the wall, so that they have enough space to not bang themselves up on the lower. And they don't have the leg function either to push themselves away or the stability in core to prevent themselves from swinging over and toppling over, potentially hurting themselves. It's sometimes useful to lower the participant to your lap and then lower from there as a unit. So what we'll do is we'll get our participant into proper lowering, relatively speaking form, 2 hands on the rope. We're going to situate ourselves below the participant, let them know that, okay, I'm going to give you a knee to sit on and we're going to lower together as a group. Okay? So then, after they're in proper position, we're going to speak down to the belayer of the participant. Okay, I'm going to lower him to my knee. Right? So we're going to pull him back and guide them to our knee. A little bit right there. Okay, hold. Okay. And now the belayer for the side climber will then set the pace. Right? We're going to want to, obviously in this scenario, move very slowly. Right? And we'll lower again in sequence. Okay? So I, as a side climber, will then reach in front of them, grab the rope in front of them, preferably by the knot. If they're particularly large, sometimes I'll use both hands. Right? In which case we'll have to move additionally extra slow so that I'm stable. And we'll let our belayer know, Judith, let us lower slowly. Good. And we will step as a unit. Right? Slow, 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 slow. And we're down. Perfect.